Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during these unprecedented times. We are battling something that we really have never seen before. And I want you to know that from all of us here at the Gridiron Expert, our thoughts and prayers are with every single one of you, those affected and those still unaffected. And we truly hope that it stays that way. So while we are all quarantined, and unfortunately quarantined without sports, we here at the Gridiron Expert wanted to give you all something to enjoy and something to look forward to. So yes, you did read the title of this video correctly. Yes, we know we are a little late, but I think you will see that it was definitely worth it. So today we are beginning the Gridiron Expert March Madness. Today is Selection Sunday, and we are about to take a look at this year's field, a field that we went out and created by ourselves. We created it based on how this previous college basketball season unfolded. Before we begin, we want to go over a few things about this year's tournament. The first being that this year's tournament will be played through a series of simulations. However, we want tons of fan interaction as well. We played through a series of simulation. Updates will be given over on our Twitter page at Gridiron Expert, and of course we will have plenty of updates here on YouTube as well. Of course, we know that over the past few weeks, several conference tournaments were canceled, and it should be noted that automatic bids were given to the team at the top of each conference standings for those tournaments that were in fact canceled. And that applies to many, such as the Ivy League, SEC, Big Ten, ACC, so forth and so on. Instead of 4 play-in games, we only had 2 play-in games, a play-in game with 2 16 seeds and 1 with 2 11 seeds. So something to keep your eye on there as well. But other than that, this structure for this NCAA tournament is the exact same. The same that we have seen every single year for the most part since 1939 when the tournament began. We want to give you something to enjoy. We want to give you something to watch and to keep your eye on during this time of quarantine, during this time without any sports. So without further ado, let's break it down on the Selection Sunday. March Madness begins right now. Welcome to Selection Sunday, where our field of 64 will be competing for the ultimate goal, national champions and king of the dance. Let's not delay it any further. Let's break it down in our first region over in the Midwest with our number 1 overall seed, the Kansas Jayhawks, coming in with a 28-3 record and Big 12 champions by default, of course. Bill Self doing a phenomenal job this season with the Jayhawks. This might be one of the better teams that he has had and one of his better chances yet to go capture another national title. Devin Dotson, Udoka Azubuike, a very dangerous duo for Kansas. Number 1 overall seed for a reason. Going to be very, very tough to beat. And their quest for a national title will begin by playing the winner of 16-seeded NC Central coming out of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference and Robert Morris, champions of the Northeast Conference. Those two playing in our first play-in game for the honor of playing the Jayhawks, the number 1 overall seed. We'll move down just a little bit, an 8-9 matchup beginning with the Arizona Wildcats coming in at number 8. A 21-11 record for Sean Miller and his squad, but the Wildcats coming in with a net ranking of 14th. So obviously strength of schedule and quality of wins playing a huge factor in the Wildcats getting this 8 seed, a very dangerous 8-9 seed here, of course with the honor of more than likely playing Kansas in the round of 32. Arizona and Miller's squad will be taking on Will Wade's LSU Tigers coming in at a number 9 seed. A lot of scandals surrounding LSU in last year's tournament, coming in at a number 3 seed and making the Sweet 16. Will Wade was able to keep his job and landed the Tigers in the top 3 of the SEC with a 21-10 record. Skylar Mays, by far the leader of this Tiger squad. They're going to have to rely on him for these Baton Rouge Tigers to make a run in this year's tournament. Moving on down just a little bit, the dangerous 5-12 matchup. Ohio State landing the 5 seed here, 21-10 overall record, and really a tale of 2 halves for the Buckeyes. An 11-1 start, which included wins over Kentucky, Villanova, North Carolina, and a 32-point win over Penn State. Struggled a little bit midway through the season, but got back on track, a 6-2 run to end the year, coming in at that 5 seed. Will they be able to make a deep run in this year's tournament, or will the 12-seeded Liberty Flames, champions of the Atlantic Sun, be able to upset the Buckeyes much like they did to the Mississippi State Bulldogs in last year's tournament? The Flames are making the tournament in back-to-back years for the first time in school history and got their first win in school history last year over the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. Moving on down, we have a 4 seed, the Butler Bulldogs. 22-9 this season. LaVall Jordan getting the Bulldogs to their second tournament in his just 3rd year with the program. You look out for a guy like Kamar Baldwin, averaging 16.2 points per game, scored 36 points in the finale versus Xavier. He's a player that's going to have to be stopped by any opponent if they want to shut down the Bulldogs, but he's also a player that can get hot at any time. Butler, a perennial tournament team, one that we all know is capable of making a deep, deep run. They will be facing off against the Anteaters of UC Irvine in at the 13 seed, Big West champions. Keep in mind, the Anteaters upset Kansas State last year as a 13 seed. Is the same going to be in store for the Bulldogs? Will they fall victim to the Anteaters in this dreaded 4-13 matchup? Should be a fun one out here in the Midwest. Moving on down, a little bit more of an even matchup. 6-seeded Illinois coming in with a 21-10 record, 4th place in the Big Ten. A team that no one saw coming this year. An 8-4 start, mediocre start, but ended up sweeping the Michigan Wolverines. Had a quality road win at Penn State, making their first tournament appearance since 2013, now in Brad Underwood's 3rd year with the Fighting Illini. They will be facing off against the 11th-seeded Arkansas Razorbacks, coming in at 20-12. A bubble team all the way up until the SEC tournament, needed to make a run there, and they did. Eric Musselman coming in his first year, eclipsing 20 wins. Once again in his college coaching career, has never failed to hit that mark, leading a dangerous duo of Mason Jones, 22 points per game on average this season, co-SEC Player of the Year, teamed up with one of the most lethal shooters in the entire country in Isaiah Joe, 16.9 points per game on average for him. An Arkansas squad that is extremely undersized, but is not undersized when it comes to heart and effort. Should be a fun one between the Fighting Illini and the Razorbacks. Right below them, we have a 3 seed, the Duke Blue Devils, coming in at a 25-6 record. Not very characteristic of a Mike Krzyzewski-led team. They went on a rough stretch late in February, going 1-3 to close the month. All 3 of those losses coming on the road, all 3 of those losses coming to unranked teams. But if we know anything, it is to never underestimate Duke. It is to never underestimate Coach K. And with Trey Jones and Cassius Stanley, they are one of the best duos in the entire country, and there is without a doubt a chance that the Duke Blue Devils can make a run at least into the Elite 8. To do so, they will have to get past the 14th-seeded New Mexico State Aggies, who slipped in as the Western Athletic Conference champions, the WAC automatic bid. The Aggies certainly a team to not be overlooked. 25-6 on the year, a perfect 16-0 in conference play. Nearly beat the 5th-seeded Auburn Tigers in last year's tournament as a 12 seed, making their now 4th straight appearance in the Big Dance. Duke, a team that has been prone to have a couple slip-ups. Mercer, Lehigh, will they fall victim to the Aggies, or will they exert their dominance and show that a few of those losses were flukes and they still need to be taken seriously? Right below them, the 7-10 matchup. Michigan coming in at number 7. A 19-12 record, 500 mark in conference for Juwan Howard in his first year with the Wolverines. but Michigan coming in with a net ranking of 24, and that strong start with wins over Creighton, North Carolina, Gonzaga, and Iowa was enough to get Michigan to this line despite a mediocre play in the Big Ten Conference. They will be facing off against the 10th seeded Florida Gators, a team that started off at number 6 in the country and drastically underachieved this season, finishing 19-12, 11-7 in the SEC, good enough for a 5th place finish within the conference. Mike White, though, his squad's known for making tournament runs despite not getting the most favorable seeds. Should be a fun one between the Wolverines and the Gators. And to round out the Midwest region, we have the 2 seed Creighton Blue Jays, 24-7 out of the Big East, a team that was on nobody's radar at the beginning of this season, but ran through the Big East to finish first in the conference. Quality road wins, quality home wins. The Blue Jays, a team that shoot the ball extremely well, one that should not be overlooked. For them to have a chance to maybe play Kansas in the Elite Eight, they will have to get past Boston University, the Terriers, out of the Patriot League, making the tournament for the first time since 2011. And that is your Midwest region right now in this year's NCAA tournament. Take a quick look. We are now going to make our way down to the South region. The number 1 seed there, the Baylor Bears, coming in at a 26-4 record. In a season where no one wanted to be the number 1 team in the country, Baylor was the team that held that mark for the most time, holding it for 5 weeks. They ended the year with bad losses at TCU and against West Virginia, but of course they are led by Jared Butler, averaging 16 points per game, and this might be Scott Drew's best team yet in Waco. Baylor, a team that despite the bad finish is still one to be very, very cautious of. They will be facing off against the 16th seeded Prairie View A&M out of the SWAC. The auto bid from that conference shouldn't be an issue for the Bears. Prairie View A&M, a perennial tournament team out of the SWAC. Moving on down, we have an 8-9 matchup here. The 8th seed Houston Cougars coming in at 23-8, first place in the American Athletic Conference, 13-5 within the conference. Quality wins at Washington and against Wichita State. Despite a poor finish, Kelvin Sampson has his team back on track. And keep in mind, the Cougars, a team that made a Sweet 16 run last year and nearly upset Kentucky to get to the Elite Eight. Despite the 8th seed, the Cougars, a dangerous team that if they were to win, could give Baylor a huge run for their money. Coming in at the number 9 seed, we have the Colorado Buffaloes, 21-11, 10-8 within the Pac-12. Could have been a lot better. This is a Colorado team that could have been a 7 or even a 6 seed. They finished the season on a 5-game losing streak, but wins against Oregon, Dayton, and Arizona State earlier in the year were very, very beneficial to the Buffaloes. Moving on down, Wisconsin coming in at the 5 seed, 21-10, 14-6, finishing the year first in the Big Ten Conference, finishing the year on an 8-game win streak. They closed the year with a net ranking of 23rd. Keep in mind that last year the Badgers were a 5 seed but were upset by the 12th seeded Oregon Ducks. Will the same fate be in store for the Badgers if they were to fall as a 5 seed? If they do, will it be to the Belmont Bruins, who come in out of the Ohio Valley, number 12 seed here, 26-7 overall? Many have them much lower, some as low as a 15 seed. But the Bruins, a team that shoot the ball extremely well, a team that narrowly lost to Maryland last year as an 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. Casey Alexander in his first season, continuing the success that Belmont had in 2018 and 2019. Watch out for the Bruins here, a sneaky 12-5 upset watch when you're picking your bracket. Coming in at the 4th seed in the South region, we have the Villanova Wildcats. Jay Wright, a phenomenal head coach. Villanova, a phenomenal team out of the Big East. 24-7 this year, 13-5 on the season within the conference. Sadiq Bey, averaging 16.1 points per game. Colin Gillespie, 15.1 points per game. Within this tournament, we will be talking about so many different dynamic duos, and Villanova has by far one of the best. Their strength of schedule, their quality of wins, and their quality of opponents have their net ranking up at number 13. The Wildcats, despite the 4 seed, despite uncharacteristic seed for Villanova, are not a team to be overlooked. And we know the 13th seeded Akron Zips will not be overlooking the Wildcats. They have upset on their minds. Akron coming out of the MAC, the auto bid, 24-7 on the year, 14-4 within the conference. A very, very stingy defense from Akron, making their first NCAA tournament appearance since 2013. Coming in at the 6th seed, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes, 20-11 on the season, 11-9 within the Big Ten. Don't let the seed nor the record fool you. This is a very, very dangerous team, led by Luka Garza, one of the best players in the entire country this season. 23.9 points per game on average for the big man for the Hawkeyes. They finished the season on a bit of a slump, 1-3 to close the year. But once again, don't let the slow finish. Don't let the mediocre record. Don't let the average seed fool you. Iowa's a team that is very, very dangerous, could very well make the Sweet 16 or even further. To do so, they have to get past UCLA, coming in at the number 11 seed. A team that was on the bubble very, very late in this season, a team that everybody had written off earlier in the year. Mick Cronin, coming over from Cincinnati. His Bruins were 12-11 midway through this season. But the Bruins closed the season on a 7-1 run to finish second within the Pac-12. They swept the Arizona Wildcats. They won at Colorado. And with a 19-12 record and a 12-6 mark in Pac-12 conference play, was good enough to sneak in as an 11 seed. Right below them, we have the 3rd seed Seton Hall Pirates. Right again, out of the Big East, 21-9, 13-5 within the Big East Conference. Once again, another very, very dangerous team that had high expectations coming into the season, and they lived up to them. Miles Powell leads this Pirates team, averaging 21 points per game, the leader for Seton Hall, the reason they are here at a number 3 seed, and the reason that the Pirates are absolutely a Final Four contender. To even get that far, they must first get past Little Rock, University of Arkansas Little Rock Trojans, getting the automatic bid out of the Sun Belt. Darrell Walker, in just his second year with Little Rock, leading them to a 21-10 record, 15-5 within the conference, winning the Sun Belt and getting a 14 seed with upsets on their mind, much like they did a few years ago, defeating Purdue as that 12 seed. Below them, we have a 7-10 matchup. The 7th seed Providence Friars coming in with a 19-12 record, finishing the year on a 6-game win streak, including wins against Seton Hall, Marquette, and on the road against Villanova. This is a Providence team that does a phenomenal job sharing the ball. They missed out on the tournament last year. They came back in 2019 with a vengeance. The Friars, certainly a team not to be overlooked. But will Indiana, the 10 seed, be able to take them down? The Hoosiers finishing 20-12, making the tournament for the first time since 2016. The Hoosiers, a bubble team up until the Big Ten Conference Tournament, but early wins against Florida State, Penn State, and Iowa were enough to get the Hoosiers a decent mark in the net rankings and just barely slipped them into this year's field. And rounding out the South region, we have the 2-seeded Florida State Seminoles, champions of the ACC, finishing 26-5. Leonard Hamilton making the Seminoles a perennial NCAA tournament team, once again doing a phenomenal job in Tallahassee. To make a run this year, they will first have to get past the Northern Kentucky Norse, coming out of the Horizon League, finishing 23-9. A Northern Kentucky team that shoots the ball extremely well and has very good size. Watch out for the Norse. That might give Florida State a bit of a challenge, at least for that first half. We are halfway through our projected field. We just finished up the South region. Let's go ahead and move on down to the East region, kicking things off with our number 1 seed over there, and that belongs to the Dayton Flyers, finishing the year 29-2, all thanks to Obi Toppin. You haven't heard that name, you need to hear it now. Arguably the best player in the entire country, Dayton, winning the Atlantic 10 Conference, looking to make a deep, deep run in this year's tournament. Their journey begins by facing off against the 16th seeded Siena Saints winning the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, getting into the tournament for the first time since 2010. Coming in at the 8th seed, we have the St. Mary's Gales, 26-8 this season, upsetting BYU in the Western Conference semifinals, Western Coast Conference semifinals, upsetting BYU there, falling to Gonzaga, upsetting Arizona State and Wisconsin over the course of this season. They will be facing off against the 9th-seeded Utah State Aggies, who won the Mountain West over the heavily favored San Diego State Aztecs. Utah State, as we all know, played in that 8-9 matchup last year, but was annihilated by Washington by 17 points. They are hoping for redemption and hoping to have a crack at a number 1 seed in this year's tournament. Down at number 5, we have the reigning national champions, the Virginia Cavaliers, 23-7, 15-5 in ACC play. A team that was on the bubble in early February at 15-7, won their final 8 games, including victories over Duke and Louisville, to claim this number 5 seed. Tony Bennett, once again, providing a very solid defense for his Cavaliers teams. They don't score many points, but they certainly do not allow many either. To continue their title defense, they will have to get past the 12th-seeded Yale Bulldogs, 23-7 on the year, 11-3 out of the Ivy League, winning that conference for that automatic bid. Paul Atkinson leading the way for the Bulldogs, 17.6 points per game. Last year as a 14 seed, they nearly upset LSU, just losing by 5 points. Can the Bulldogs once again pull off a major, or try to pull off a major upset against the reigning champs? And once again, a very dangerous 5-12 matchup that always busts brackets. Right below them, we have the 4th-seeded Louisville Cardinals, 24-7 out of the ACC, finishing with a net ranking of 8. Jordan Nwora, 18 points per game, one of the greatest forwards in the ACC this season. Chris Mack, in just his second year, hoping to make a better run with the Cardinals after losing as a 7 seed to Minnesota in the first round in last year's tournament. For Louisville to make a run this year, they will have to get past a dangerous 13 seed and the Vermont Catamounts, the American East Conference champions. Catamounts finishing 26-7, a team that shoots the ball extremely well. If the Catamounts get hot, you will not beat them. Louisville going to have to play fantastic defense and not allow any offensive rebounds. Moving on down the line, we have the 6th-seeded BYU Cougars coming in at 24-8, 13-3 within their conference. They were just 16-7 entering February, but they beat St. Mary's and Gonzaga to send them over the edge and solidify their spot in this year's field. They lost in heartbreaking fashion in the semifinals to St. Mary's, but nonetheless, Yoli Childs, who averages 22.1 points per game, and Jordan Ford, who's averaging 21.9 points per game, will make up one of the more dangerous duos of this year's field, and BYU could be one of those Cinderella teams that makes a run to a Sweet 16 or beyond. To do that, they will have to get past the winner of the 11-seed play-in game between North Carolina State and Texas, 2 teams that were just right on the bubble, just barely sneaking into this field, both having very quality wins, both teams that are peaking right at the right time. But a couple of costly losses are why they are going to have to play in this play-in game just to get into the first round of this year's tournament. Moving on down, we have the 3rd-seeded Michigan State Spartans, Tom Izzo's squad, 22-9 this season, ending 2020 on a 5-game win streak, including wins on the road against Maryland, Penn State, and a home win against Ohio State. A Spartans team that fell out of the rankings earlier this year rose all the way back up to number 9, and they are once again led by one of the greatest players in all of basketball, Cassius Winston, averaging 18.6 points per game, shocking the nation last year by announcing he would return for 1 more year. If the Spartans are hoping to make a return trip to the Final Four, they will first have to get past the 14th-seeded Hofstra Pride, making their first tournament appearance since 2001 by winning the Colonial League with a 26-8 record. A team like that, a lot of pride in that team, a lot of talent within that team, certainly one that Michigan State cannot afford to overlook, a Spartans team that has struggled against lower seeds in recent years. Below them, in come the 7th-seeded Rutgers Scarlet Knights, making their first tournament appearance since 1991 with a 20-11 record. The Scarlet Knights, a dominant team at home, 18-1, but struggling on the road with a 2-8 record. But it was a road win, a road overtime win at Purdue that got them firmly off the bubble and firmly into the dance this year. They are looking to advance in the tournament for the first time since 1983. To do so, they will have to take down the national runner-ups from last year, the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who snuck in with an 18-13 overall record, but they do have a net ranking of 22. That net ranking doing a lot for Chris Beard's squad, who had a lot of key pieces to replace, but got just enough big wins, including a road win against Louisville, to sneak into this year's field and trying to make yet another big dance run. And finally, closing out the East region, we have Kentucky coming in at the 2 seed, the SEC champions, 25-6 on the year, led by Player of the Year Emmanuel Quickley and his big-time helpers in Tyrese Maxey and Nick Richards, a very, very dangerous big man. John Calipari, never a coach you want to underestimate when it comes to March. They're looking to make a run and must first get past the North Dakota State Bison in at the 15 seed, winning the Summit League with a 25-8 record, making their second straight NCAA tournament appearance. Rounding out our field of 64, we move on down to the West region with our final number 1 seed, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, coming in at a 31-2 record and number 1 in the net rankings. Many considering this to be Mark Few's best team yet, but can the Bulldogs finally win the national championship that has eluded him for so many years? Their journey will begin against the 16th-seeded Eastern Washington Eagles, getting the automatic bid out of the Big Sky. Once again, we have seen a 16 seed upset the one before. Hopefully, that is not the case for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Moving down the line, we have the 8th-seeded USC Trojans staying out west with a 22-9 record, 11-7, good enough for 3rd in the Pac-12. USC, a team finishing the year on a 3-game win streak, including wins against Arizona, Arizona State, and UCLA. All quality wins and all quality opponents that made this year's tournament field. They will be facing off against the 9th-seeded Oklahoma Sooners. 19-12 out of the Big 12 this season, but good enough for 3rd in the league. Just like Texas Tech, many will wonder why Oklahoma was able to slip in here, but they have quality wins at Texas, Mississippi State. They swept West Virginia and were able to beat Texas Tech. 46 in the net rankings. Lon Kruger's squad, not one that you need to overlook. Once again, we have our final 5 versus 12 matchup, one of the most dangerous games to pick in March. Coming in at number 5, we have the Auburn Tigers, who for the 2nd straight year will be a 5 seed. The Tigers, led by Bruce Pearl, finishing 25-6, 2nd in the SEC. The Tigers making a surprise Final Four run last year. Can they do it again? With Samir Dowdy leading the way with 16.7 points per game. Auburn, a dangerous shooting team that when they get hot, they are dangerous. But the same can be said for their opponent, the 12th-seeded Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks, getting the automatic bid out of the Southland Conference. 28-3 on the year, 19-1 within their conference. A team that you do need to remember went on the road and defeated Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium. A team that forces a lot of turnovers, and if they do that against the Tigers, could pull off one of the biggest upsets of this tournament. Moving down, we have the 4th-seeded Maryland Terrapins, 24-7 with a net ranking of 18, finishing the year on a 7-3 run. Anthony Cowan Jr., 16.3 points per game on the year. Jalen Smith averaging a double-double. Maryland, a team looking to avenge their heartbreaking loss to LSU in last year's round of 32. Maryland, a team that has enough talent to make a deep run this year, but will first have to get past a very large North Texas squad coming in at the 13 seed. Conference USA automatic bid. Conference USA champions for the Mean Green. 20-11, on the year. If Maryland does not know how to box out, they will be in for a very, very rough game against this Mean Green squad. In this back half of the Western region, we have Penn State coming in at the 6th seed, 21-10 on the year, a net ranking of 35. A team that saw themselves rise as high as number 9 in the nation, led by one of the best players in the nation in Lamar Stevens, 17.6 points per game. Pat Chambers had a make-or-break year coming into this season. He had to get the Nittany Lions to the postseason, and he did just that, overachieving, getting them to a 6th seed, a chance to make a deep run this year, but will have to get past one of the toughest 11 seeds in this field, Eastern Tennessee State, coming out of the Southern Conference, winning that conference with a 30-4 record and a net ranking of 36, better than some of these other elite teams in this year's field. Wofford was the team out of the Southern Conference last year, a very dangerous team that made the round of 32. East Tennessee is the team that could do that this year. Penn State cannot afford to overlook them. Rounding this out, we have the 3rd seed Oregon Ducks coming in with a net ranking of 12, an overall record of 24-7. Oregon, a team that just snuck into the tournament last year as a 12 seed, going from a 12 seed last year to a 3 seed this year. Fantastic job by Dana Altman, but an even better job by Pac-12 Player of the Year Peyton Pritchard, who averages 20.5 points per game and has been the senior leader for the Ducks all season long. For Oregon, to try to make a return trip to the Final Four, much like they did a few years ago, they will have to get past 14th-seeded Bradley. The Braves, coming out of the Missouri Valley Conference, winning that conference as the 4th seed with a 23-11 record. It was not Northern Iowa this year. It was not Loyola Chicago. It was Bradley. But they still have the heart and the passion, just like those other 2 schools, to make a dangerous Cinderella run. Coming down, we have the 7th-seeded West Virginia Mountaineers, a team out of the Big 12 that finished just 9-9 within the conference, but 21-10 overall. Bob Huggins' squad ended the year with a really monumental win over 4th-ranked Baylor by 12 points, finishing in the net rankings at 17th. They will be facing off against Bobby Hurley's Arizona State Sun Devils, making the tournament for the 3rd straight year with a 20-11 record. Arizona State finishing the year on an 8-3 run from February to the end of the year with a big win over Oregon, big wins over USC, UCLA, Arizona State. A double-digit seed, but one that very well could have been much higher. And rounding out this field of 64, rounding out this year's March Madness field, we have the 2-seeded San Diego State Aztecs coming in with a 30-2 record. The Aztecs played themselves off the one line by losing to Utah State in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. The Aztecs, though, still a team to watch out for, finishing 4th in the net rankings. Malachi Flynn, Jordan Shackle, Matt Mitchell, Yanni Wetzel, all of them scoring in double digits. This is the Aztecs team that shares the ball extremely well, and an Aztecs team that plays extremely solid defense. Do not let the quality of opponents fool you. San Diego State deserves to be taken seriously, and they must first get past the 15th-seeded Winthrop Eagles out of the Big South, earning the automatic bid from that conference, finishing 24-10 on the year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Gridiron Expert March Madness field going into 2020. We might not have a legitimate tournament, but to me, this is just as good. You do not want to miss this. Stay tuned for the upsets on Twitter. Stay tuned for the updates on YouTube. See who you believe will make it to the Final Four and who will be crowned March Madness champion, King of the Dance in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for watching us here today. Thank you so much for joining us on Selection Sunday. Please, to all of you, stay safe out there, stay healthy, stay quarantined, and enjoy this year's tournament.